Hey everybody, it's Adam, and today I want to finally finish up my two-part series on aiming and sensitivity in Call of Duty. So I'm going to be linking my first video on this topic from a week or so ago here for the first couple of minutes of the video, and I'm also going to put a link up top to a video I made about the same subject but in a different way back when Black Ops was first released, in case you all are bored enough to watch them all and sort of get an idea for the evolution of my thoughts on the matter here. So again, forgive me for channeling Barry White here, still going on day 6 of this chest infection or whatever, so I am trying to power through it and get you guys some good content. So briefly about the video, I know we don't talk a lot about the content here. This is actually a loss, a one-kill loss. The guy on the other team leads the other team, is a frequent nemesis of mine when I play TDM solo, and he and I eventually just decided to add each other to our friends lists because I'd play one game and go 30-5, and our team would win, and he'd play one game and go 30-5, and his team would win. Anyways, he's a good player. I don't feel like I call people out as good when I play against good players like I should sometimes, so I want to give this guy some credit. He is really, really one of the best TDM players that I play against when I'm out there, or play with now. Anyways, so please keep in mind this is not by any means, this is not an objective review or conversation about aiming and sensitivity. There's literally no way I can do this objectively. It has to be a subjective look at the subject because it has to be based on what what I think, how things feel for me, how different techniques work for me, and certainly what I see by observing my friends and talking to them and things like that. There's just no other way to do it because it really is such a personal topic, if you will. What I have found is that for myself and pretty much everyone I talk to, sensitivity breaks down usually like this. Well, if I put lower sensitivity on, my accuracy is better, but my mobility is less. All right? That is the general refrain you get from most people. I find that as you start talking to better players with better KDs. Now, please keep in mind that I don't think a better KD makes you a better player, but players with, let's say, good KDs that also move around the map a lot, that are very aggressive, that turn on players a lot, that use sniper rifles a lot, that use one-shot guns a lot, things like that. You get a real divide. You'll get a player like Sandy Ravage or Cnanners or someone like on the top end, top YouTubers who use 2 or 3 sensitivity because they feel like they want the maximum in control and aim, even at that level. And then you get a lot of the other players, Hutch, Ernest Lee, all those guys who use our Fearcrads, iTemp, all those guys, 4, 5, 6, even 7 sensitivity. They want the ability to move, and they've also figured out how to aim well with that sort of twitchiness in it. You talk to sort of the average guy, good players, 2KD players, play very competitively, can have big games, and when I say that, I'm referring to most of the guys I play with. You find that almost all of them will play around the 2 or 3 sensitivity. Now, 2 is the default medium, 4 is the default high, 3 is sort of a perfect in between, if you will. So I find that the vast majority of casual people that I play with, including my friends, many of which are very good at the game, play on that 2 or 3 sensitivity because they simply find it easier to aim. So with that as the base and taking the last video into consideration, I worked my way all the way up to 6 and then back down to 2. And I played probably 50 games with some variation, from 6 down to 2. And I ended up spending most of my time at 5 and 4 until I eventually decided that I was most comfortable in my ability to aim and have mobility at 4 sensitivity. But my absolute best aim came at 3. So now, even for me, I'm dodging a little bit between 4 and 3 when I play. Now, I think that there are a couple of factors that really affect this. And the strange thing is, eye-to-hand coordination, I don't think has anything to do with it. I think you can have exceptional eye-to-hand coordination and it won't make any difference for your sensitivity. But here's one thing that I think is really telling. I think the length of your thumbs in relation to the size of your hand makes a huge difference in your ability to handle high sensitivity. And furthermore, I think people that use control freaks, and if you don't know about control freaks, I'm going to do a video about them probably in the next week or so, a review of some of the new ones they have out. The control freaks are add-ons to your controller that essentially add extra length to the thumbsticks. And they sort of slow down the movement of the stick, which means you have a little bit more of a dead zone with which to play with, which theoretically should make you more accurate, right? The funny thing about the control freaks is that they're really only useful if you have relatively long thumbs. Because if you have short thumbs, reaching up to the top of the stick is much more uncomfortable. Number one, and number two, it actually makes it harder to move them. So I talked to a bunch of people that use control freaks and asked them about it, and by and large, all of them would describe themselves as having relatively longer fingers. I myself have very big palms but small fingers, and or not small. I want to say short fingers, wide fingers, and that makes it actually very difficult for me to use control freaks comfortably. And I think that that frequently applies to people that play with very high sensitivities. I think that people that tend to have bigger hands, longer fingers, slender fingers, tend to be more comfortable with higher sensitivities because they can make smaller, minute adjustments on the sticks. And again, please, purely subjective conversation here, just based on talking to people, playing and observing. But I'm really curious what you guys think about that, because I'd be curious if you asked people, or if you're a guy it's leaving me a comment. If you play on 4, 5, 6 sensitivity, tell me, do you have real long, slender fingers, and do you think that helps? Because I am positive that it does to some extent. Regardless, to get to the sort of the meat of the point I want to make, how do you describe aiming and sensitivity in Call of Duty? It's obviously always going to be a matter of personal preference, okay? I think after thousands and thousands of hours of playing and testing and talking to people and really breaking down the subject as analytically as I can, the vast majority of people will be better served playing on a lower sensitivity. I think 3 is probably going to be the sweet spot for pretty much everyone. And with that being said, I think I'm probably done talking about this. So good luck, everyone.